3 minutes ago, a single declaration rewrote the rules of royal power. No warning, no consultation, no subtle palace briefing. Prince William stood before the world and named Catherine the sole guardian of their children's royal duties, an unprecedented move that insiders are calling a silent coup. Was this a protective act of love or a calculated shift in the monarchy's future? And more importantly, what forced this decision now? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The shock did not unfold slowly, it detonated. Within seconds of William's words leaving his mouth, news alerts flashed across the United Kingdom and rippled through the Commonwealth like a constitutional tremor. Anchors interrupted broadcasts. Commentators scrambled to interpret language that felt both intimate and explosive. Sole guardian was not a sentimental phrase, it was deliberate. Legal analysts immediately began dissecting its implications, emphasizing that guardianship over royal duties is not symbolic parenting, it is institutional authority. It determines who shapes the public identity, training, exposure, and long-term positioning of the future heirs. In royal terms, that means influence over the monarchy's destiny itself. William's tone was steady, but there was a tightness beneath it, a steel that signaled resolve rather than ceremony. Beside him, Catherine stood composed, almost unnervingly calm, as if this moment had been rehearsed, not in public halls, but in private conviction. Her posture did not betray surprise. It projected readiness. That contrast his intensity. Her quiet certainty was noticed instantly. Senior aides, seated just beyond the camera's immediate focus, exchanged glances that lasted a fraction too long. No applause followed, no triumphant smiles. Only a silence thick enough to suggest something seismic had just shifted. The absence of certain senior figures did not go unnoticed either. Observers quickly pointed out who was not standing in support. In royal culture, absence can speak louder than dissent. And today, the empty spaces carried meaning. Social media erupted within minutes. Supporters praised William for protecting his children from suffocating tradition. Critics questioned whether this was a calculated consolidation of power, positioning Catherine as the ultimate gatekeeper of the monarchy's next generation. Has the balance inside the House of Windsor quietly tilted? The question trended worldwide before the hour was over. Behind the spectacle lies the phrase itself, sole guardian, not co-guardian, not in consultation, sole. That single word reverberated through palace corridors long after the microphones were switched off. For decades, royal children have been guided by an intricate web of advisors, courtiers, and inherited protocols. Today, that web was severed in one decisive stroke. Authority, once diffused among tradition-bound overseers, now rests squarely in Catherine's hands. It was framed as a family decision, but insiders are already whispering that this was never just about bedtime routines or school calendars. It was about control of narrative, control of exposure, control of succession optics. And perhaps most telling was William's final emphasis. This arrangement was effective immediately, no gradual transition, no phased adjustment, immediate. That urgency is what unsettled even seasoned royal watchers. Because in this institution, change is usually slow, negotiated, softened by ritual. Today's shift felt different. Sharp, intentional, protective, yes, but also strategic. As speculation intensifies and palace insiders retreat into carefully worded silence, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This declaration was not born in a vacuum. It was the culmination of pressures building quietly, persistently, behind closed doors. But to understand why William would make such a dramatic declaration now, we have to rewind back to the quiet tensions building behind palace doors long before today's announcement. Behind the polished smiles and balcony waves, the royal children have been carrying a burden few truly understand. Cameras, expectations, whispers about destiny, every step rehearsed, every word scrutinized. But in recent months, something shifted. The pressure intensified. And insiders say Catherine saw something that others refused to acknowledge, something that forced her hand and reshaped the future of the monarchy's youngest heirs. What the public sees are brief appearances, carefully timed photographs, moments of youthful charm framed as continuity. What they do not see is the steady escalation behind those moments, more engagements, longer ceremonies, increased presence at events once reserved for seasoned royals. The children were no longer gently introduced to duty, they were being ushered toward it with urgency. Palace insiders began quietly referring to them as the future in training, a phrase that sounds noble but carries the weight of inevitability. Every public step became symbolic, every smile interpreted as readiness. Childhood, once shielded, was slowly becoming rehearsal. For the eldest, expectations hardened first. The language around him shifted from young prince to future sovereign. Advisors began discussing posture, speech patterns, composure under scrutiny. Conversations about education were no longer only about academics, they were about optics, alliances, preparation. Even playful gestures were analyzed for signs of temperament. It was subtle, almost invisible to the outside world, but inside palace walls, the transformation was undeniable. The monarchy was not waiting for adulthood to shape its heir. It was shaping him now, and Catherine watched. At first, she navigated the system carefully, honoring tradition while protecting moments of normalcy. She balanced duty with deliberate boundaries, negotiating schedules, softening demands, ensuring bedtime stories were not replaced entirely by briefing papers. But as appearances multiplied, so did her concern. Insiders describe a shift in her tone during private discussions, less accommodating, more resolute. She began questioning the pace, questioning the necessity, questioning whether legacy required such early sacrifice. Small changes followed. Invitations were declined. Engagements quietly reduced. The children's calendar tightened, curated with greater precision. It did not go unnoticed. Senior figures, accustomed to steady visibility, interpreted the adjustment as overprotection. Tension simmered. Was Catherine undermining preparation, or was she redefining it? The debate grew sharper behind closed doors, where words like duty and destiny clashed with well-being and childhood. Reports began to circulate of heated exchanges, discussions that stretched late into the night about safeguarding innocence without jeopardizing institutional continuity. Catherine, usually measured, spoke with unexpected intensity. She had seen the toll of scrutiny before. She understood what happens when a child becomes a symbol too soon. The monarchy thrives on image, but image can consume identity. And she refused to let that happen unchecked. The emotional cost was not abstract. It was personal. Watching her children wave to crowds that saw crowns instead of childhood stirred something fierce within her, pride intertwined with fear, success shadowed by vulnerability. She understood the privilege of their position, but she also understood its price. And somewhere in that growing tension between love and legacy, between protection and protocol, the foundation for William's announcement was quietly being laid. Because as the pressure mounted and the system demanded conformity, one truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't simply about public appearances or ceremonial obligations. It was about who ultimately decides how the next generation is shaped. And as Catherine's resolve strengthened, so did William's awareness that the old balance could not hold forever. But this wasn't just about shielding children from flashbulbs. It was about confronting a system that demanded control, and William knew something had to change. For years, Prince William has balanced duty and devotion, but sources close to the palace describe a moment of private confrontation that altered everything. A heated exchange, a clash between tradition and fatherhood. In that moment, William wasn't just an heir to the throne, he was a father staring at the cost of legacy. And what he decided in that room may have permanently shifted royal power dynamics forever. The meeting had been scheduled as routine, another strategic discussion about the children's evolving public roles. Attendance was selective, senior family members, trusted advisors, voices steeped in precedent. What began as procedural quickly sharpened into something far more volatile. The proposal on the table was simple in wording, but enormous in implication. Increase visibility, accelerate ceremonial participation, normalize early immersion into state obligations. The language was clinical, the reasoning framed as necessary continuity. But beneath the polished phrasing lay an expectation William had known his entire life, that heirs are shaped by exposure, not shielded from it. This time, he did not nod in quiet acceptance. Those present describe a rare rupture in tone. William challenged the pacing, questioned the urgency, pressed on why childhood must bend so quickly to institutional appetite. Protocols that had stood unchallenged for generations were suddenly dissected by the very man expected to inherit them. It was not rebellion for spectacle. It was controlled, deliberate resistance, yet resistance nonetheless. He invoked memory not strategically, but personally, the relentless scrutiny of his own youth. The way cameras had documented grief, as if it were a ceremony, the weight of expectation long before he understood what it meant. The shadow of his mother hovered in that room without being named at first, but it was there. The lessons carved into him by loss, by public fascination with private pain, by a childhood lived beneath a microscope. When her name was finally spoken, it was not accusatory. It was not accusatory. It was protective. William made it clear. He would not allow history to echo without question. Not again. Not with his children. What unsettled the room most was not his emotion, it was his clarity. He did not argue against duty. He argued against timing, against surrendering control of his children's development to an inherited script that no longer aligned with a changing world. He suggested something far more radical than reduced appearances. He suggested restructuring the very mechanism that governs how royal heirs are prepared. Fewer overseers, tighter parental authority, strategic pacing determined not by tradition alone, but by psychological readiness. That suggestion landed heavily, because restructuring heir preparation is not a minor adjustment. It touches the core of monarchy's continuity. Some saw risk, others saw necessity. William saw inevitability. Survival, he argued, would not come from rigidity. It would come from adaptation, and adaptation required courage from within. In the days that followed, his defiance did not soften. IT crystallized. Quiet consultations began. Legal advisors discreetly approached. Language drafted with precision. The phrase that would later stun the world was not impulsive. It was considered, crafted, weighted with intention. Sole guardian. Not symbolic empowerment, but enforceable authority. Catherine would not simply support their children's public path. She would define it. Entrusting her in that capacity was more than marital confidence. It was strategic faith. William recognized in Catherine something the institution desperately needed: empathy without weakness, discipline without detachment. By naming her the sovereign guardian of their children's roles, he was not stepping back. He was fortifying the line of succession with maternal oversight at its core. And yet, granting Catherine sole guardianship wasn't simply protective, it was revolutionary, because it changed who truly controls the monarchy's next generation. For years, she was underestimated, smiled at, photographed, admired, but rarely feared. Today, Catherine stepped into a new role, one no modern royal mother has ever held: ultimate authority over her children's royal trajectory. This wasn't ceremonial, it was structural, a shift in influence that places her at the center of the monarchy's most delicate decisions. And some insiders say this moment has been years in the making. Long before titles and tiaras became inevitable, Catherine learned the rhythm of this institution from the outside looking in. She entered the royal orbit not with inherited privilege, but with observation. She studied it quietly, the unspoken hierarchies, the choreography of power, the way influence flows not always from the throne, but from those who shape perception. While critics dismissed her as merely poised and polished, she was building something far more enduring: trust. Trust with the public, who saw in her a steadiness that felt authentic. Trust with advisors, who recognized her ability to listen more than she spoke. And most importantly, trust with William, who came to rely on her judgment not as an accessory to duty, but as its anchor. Her evolution was not loud, it was deliberate. From university partner to royal spouse, from supportive consort to future queen, she mastered the art of strategic patience. She understood that power within the monarchy is rarely seized, it is earned through resilience and restraint. While others sought headlines, Catherine cultivated credibility. She embraced causes with depth rather than spectacle. She approached engagements not as performance, but as long-term investment in public goodwill. Over time, she became more than admired, she became indispensable. But it was within her role as a mother that her quiet authority sharpened. Catherine's approach to parenting stood in subtle contrast to rigid tradition. She insisted on presence, on involvement, on normalcy where possible, school runs instead of distant oversight, private conversations instead of formal briefings. She did not reject royal expectation, she recalibrated it. That recalibration unsettled some who viewed distance as discipline, yet to William, it reflected strength. A moral clarity rooted not in protocol, but in protection. As pressure around the children intensified, Catherine's influence deepened. She began shaping not only schedules, but philosophy. The monarchy's image, once defined primarily by continuity, began absorbing elements of empathy and relatability through her steady guidance. Public perception shifted subtly but powerfully. The royal family appeared less untouchable, more human. Less rigid, more responsive. That transformation was not accidental. It was Catherine's quiet imprint. So when William made his declaration, it was not a spontaneous elevation. It was a culminati on. By entrusting her fully, he was acknowledging what insiders had long observed, that her judgment had become the monarchy's internal compass. She balanced compassion with discipline, modernity with respect for legacy. Naming her sole guardian was not simply a gesture of confidence. It was recognition of competence. It signaled that the shaping of future kings and princes would be guided not by inherited script alone, but by a mother who understands both the cost of scrutiny and the necessity of strength. And in doing so, Catherine crossed an invisible threshold. She was no longer only preparing to stand beside a king. She was actively shaping the leaders who will define the monarchy's next era. That authority carries weight. It reorders influence. It redraws internal lines that had stood for decades. But if Catherine now holds the reins over the children's royal future, what does that mean for everyone else who once had influence? In the gilded corridors of Buckingham Palace, power is rarely surrendered without resistance. And William's declaration didn't just empower Catherine, it sidelined others, advisors, senior royals, long-standing guardians of protocol. Some insiders described the atmosphere tonight as icy, because this wasn't merely a parental decision, it was a redistribution of authority at the highest level. For decades, the shaping of royal heirs has followed an unspoken chain of influence. Experienced courtiers guided appearances, senior figures advised on tone, posture, and symbolic messaging. Committees quietly weighed in on everything from school exposure to ceremonial pacing. It was a system built on continuity, designed to protect the institution from impulsive change. And then, in a single announcement, that web of oversight was disrupted, not trimmed, disrupted. Many of those who had long operated behind the scenes were caught off guard. They had anticipated adjustments, perhaps a recalibration of schedules. What they had not anticipated was a unilateral transfer of authority. Sole guardian meant that oversight would no longer be shared by default. It meant that Catherine, not a panel of advisors, would hold decisive control over which engagements the children accept, how frequently they appear, and under what narrative framing. For individuals accustomed to shaping the monarchy's future from discrete corners, the shift felt abrupt, even destabilizing. The tension is not loud, it is strategic. Elder figures who once exercised subtle influence now find themselves navigating a new hierarchy. Some have responded with polite restraint. Others, according to insiders, have begun quiet lobbying efforts, attempting to reinterpret the declaration's scope. Perhaps, they suggest, sole guardian refers only to logistical matters. Perhaps advisory input remains intact. Language, in royal governance, is everything. And now, that language is under scrutiny. What makes this moment particularly volatile is the generational divide it exposes. The older guard represents continuity through structure, adherence to precedent, faith in tradition's endurance. William and Catherine represent adaptation, a willingness to evolve in response to public expectation and personal conviction. This is not rebellion for spectacle, it is reform framed as protection. Yet reform by its nature unsettles those who believe stability comes from repetition. Private meetings have reportedly intensified since the announcement, not confrontational in tone, but urgent in purpose. What does this mean for succession planning, for ceremonial choreography, for the delicate balance between crown and council? These questions are no longer theoretical. They are operational. If Catherine controls the preparation of the heirs, she indirectly influences the monarchy's tone decades into the future. That level of concentrated authority has rarely rested so clearly in one individual's hands, outside the reigning sovereign. And therein lies the deeper unease. This decision may signal more than parental protection, it may foreshadow broader restructuring. If heir preparation can be centralized, what other long-standing practices could be reconsidered? What other advisory roles might be streamlined or redefined? Reform has a way of spreading once it proves possible. Today, it is about children's duties. Tomorrow, it could be about governance itself. For William, this was a calculated risk. Empowering Catherine so publicly ensures clarity, but it also invites scrutiny from within. He has effectively drawn a line, signaling that the next generation will be shaped differently. Whether that difference strengthens or strains the institution remains to be seen. What is undeniable is that the palace is adjusting, recalibrating in real time, measuring the cost of change against the price of stagnation. Because while internal resistance can simmer behind closed doors, it is the court of public opinion that ultimately determines whether reform endures or fractures under pressure. But beyond parlor, politics, the public response may be the most powerful force shaping what happens next. The world is watching and reacting. Some see a devoted father protecting his children. Others see a calculated maneuver to consolidate influence before the crown eventually changes hands. Supporters praise Catherine's maternal strength. Critics question transparency, and as debates rage across Britain and beyond, one question echoes louder than ever. What does this mean for the monarchy's future? Within hours of the announcement, public opinion fractured into competing narratives. For many, William's declaration felt deeply human. A father choosing protection over pressure, a husband expressing unwavering trust in the woman who has stood beside him through scrutiny and expectation. Supporters flooded discussions with admiration for Catherine, calling her the steady heart of a changing monarchy. They saw her elevation not as political maneuvering, but as overdue recognition of a mother who has quietly safeguarded her children while carrying the weight of national symbolism. Yet admiration was not universal. Critics quickly reframed the decision as strategic consolidation. They questioned whether this was less about shielding childhood and more about shaping succession optics long before William ascends the throne. By centralizing authority under Catherine, some argue, William has effectively secured his inner circle against competing influence. The word soul, Dulaf, Solba, continues to echo in headlines, interpreted by skeptics as exclusion rather than empowerment. Transparency, they insist, demands clarity. Why now, and why in this way? Social media intensified the divide. Across generations, the debate took on emotional undertones. Younger voices largely embraced the shift, praising a model of royal parenting that feels protective and modern. Older observers, steeped in tradition, expressed concern that altering heir preparation risks destabilizing the institution's predictability. Has the monarchy become too responsive to personal sentiment, or is adaptability precisely what ensures its survival? The questions collided in real time, amplifying the sense that this moment transcends family dynamics. Beyond Britain's borders, reactions from Commonwealth nations added further layers. Commentators abroad viewed the decision as symbolic of a monarchy at crossroads, either evolving to remain relevant or tightening internal control before inevitable transition. International analysts noted that how heirs are shaped directly influences diplomatic tone in decades to come. If Catherine's guidance prioritizes empathy and measured exposure, the monarchy's global image could soften. If perceived as insular consolidation, skepticism may deepen. The stakes extend far beyond palace walls. Emotionally, parallels to the past have resurfaced. Supporters evoke memories of a mother who once fought fiercely to humanize royalty, drawing lines between public duty and personal vulnerability. Interviews with royal admirers echo a recurring theme: protection matters. They see Catherine's guardianship as a continuation of that legacy, an insistence that compassion can coexist with crown. Whether those comparisons are fair or idealized, they amplify the emotional weight of this decision. At its core, this controversy reveals how fragile the monarchy's relationship with modern audiences has become. Every move is dissected, every silence interpreted. The institution survives not only through tradition, but through perception, and perception is shifting rapidly. William's declaration has forced the public to confront a deeper reality. The monarchy is not static, it adapts, sometimes abruptly, when pressure reaches a breaking point. The debate will not fade quickly. It will evolve, harden, soften, and resurface as the children grow under Catherine's defined authority. For now, the world continues to analyze motives and meanings, but perhaps the true consequence of this decision lies not in today's reaction, but in tomorrow's outcome. Yet the most profound impact of this decision may not be felt today, but years from now. History will mark this day as more than a headline. By placing Catherine in sole control of their children's royal duties, William may have quietly rewritten the blueprint for monarchy itself. The next generation could be raised not by rigid tradition, but by conscious strategy. And if that happens, the future king's upbringing may look nothing like what came before. For centuries, heirs were molded through immersion, exposure was education, ceremony was classroom, public expectation was the forge that shaped composure. But William's decision signals a profound shift in philosophy. Instead of surrendering childhood to institution, he has placed its stewardship in the hands of a mother determined to calibrate duty with development. This is not abandonment of tradition, it is recalibration, a deliberate slowing of pace during the most formative years, ensuring identity forms before obligation consumes it. Under Catherine's guardianship, heir preparation could transform into something more intentional, fewer ceremonial overloads, more measured introductions to responsibility. Instead of relentless appearances designed to normalize visibility, engagements may be chosen for depth rather than frequency. The difference is subtle but revolutionary. It suggests that leadership is not strengthened by exhaustion, but by balance. And balance is something this institution has rarely prioritized. Education, too, takes on renewed significance. Not as a backdrop to royal branding, but as a shield against premature symbolism. Privacy becomes strategy, development becomes priority. Catherine's influence implies that intellectual grounding and emotional resilience may outweigh early spectacle. In a digital age where every moment can be dissected globally within seconds, protecting formative experiences becomes not indulgence, but survival. A future monarch, raised with guarded exposure, may command authority not through mystique alone, but through authenticity. This approach hints at cultural modernization far beyond parenting. A monarchy that demonstrates adaptability signals relevance. If heirs grow up visibly protected, publicly supported rather than paraded, the crown could reshape its relationship with younger generations. Empathy-driven leadership is not weakness, it is strategic strength in a century defined by transparency. Catherine's steady, composed presence suggests that compassion can be institutionalized without eroding dignity. And then there is the broader adaptation. The digital era has transformed scrutiny from episodic to constant. Royal children no longer face occasional headlines. They exist within continuous commentary. By centralizing authority, William may be insulating his heirs from algorithm-driven exposure. It is a forward-looking maneuver disguised as parental instinct. In controlling the timing and context of appearances, Catherine effectively moderates the monarchy's interface with an unforgiving media ecosystem. If successful, this moment could echo for decades. Future Royal historians may trace a line back to this declaration as the pivot point where heir preparation evolved from inherited choreography to strategic design. It may redefine how succession feels to the public, less distant, more considered. Yet bold reform always carries risk. Concentrating influence invites scrutiny. Reducing tradition invites critique. The monarchy's survival has long depended on stability. Now it depends equally on adaptation. William's decision plants a flag in the ground. It signals that continuity will not mean repetition without reflection. The children growing under Catherine's direction may embody a quieter strength, shaped not by relentless visibility, but by deliberate readiness. If that vision holds, today's controversy could become tomorrow's validation. But transformation rarely emerges without catalyst. And the timing of this shift, so decisive, so immediate, raises an unavoidable curiosity. But there remains one final question: why now? The wording was precise, the timing surgical. Royal watchers know that nothing in this family happens accidentally. So why was this announcement made today? Was it triggered by internal conflict, a looming constitutional shift, or a private realization too urgent to delay? Behind the scenes, clues are emerging, and they suggest this decision was not spontaneous, but strategic. In the weeks leading up to the declaration, subtle tremors had already begun to ripple through palace circles. Conversations grew shorter. Briefings became more guarded. There were whispers of disagreement over how prominently the children should feature in upcoming state events. Nothing explosive, nothing public, just a tightening of tone. Insiders describe a quiet friction between preservation and progression, between those who favored acceleration and those who urged restraint. That tension did not erupt outwardly, but it accumulated while 8. At the same time, the calendar itself was shifting. Significant royal milestones approached, moments that would traditionally draw the younger generation further into ceremonial life. Anniversaries, diplomatic gatherings, commemorations designed to reinforce continuity. For William, these upcoming events may have represented a crossroads, allow the institution to dictate the children's visibility or redefine the framework before the schedule hardened into expectation. Acting now ensured that future appearances would unfold under Catherine's authority. Not inherited momentum, there were also quiet administrative movements that did not attract headlines at first. Adjustments in advisory roles, revisions to internal documentation regarding youth engagement planning, nothing dramatic on its own. But together, they formed a pattern preparation. Legal language does not materialize overnight. It is drafted, refined, stress-tested. The announcement's clarity suggests that groundwork had been laid well before the microphones were switched on. This was not emotional impulse, it was structured intention. Some insiders speculate that unseen disagreements accelerated the timeline. When consensus within palace walls becomes fragile, decisive action can prevent prolonged power struggles. By formalizing Catherine's role publicly, William effectively removed ambiguity. He did not leave room for reinterpretation through private channels. His tone carried permanence. There was no suggestion of temporary trial or evaluative period. It was established as fact, effective immediately. That firmness may have been designed to close debate before it gained traction. Coordination with key advisors appears to have been selective but deliberate. Those consulted were likely aligned with the vision of recalibrated heir preparation. Those excluded learned alongside the public. That divide alone speaks volumes about shifting trust dynamics. When authority narrows to a smaller inner circle, it signals confidence but also risk. William seems prepared to absorb that risk. The urgency remains the most compelling mystery. Something tipped the balance from discussion to declaration, whether it was internal resistance, external pressure, or a deeply personal realization. The outcome is the same. Catherine now holds unequivocal control over how the next generation steps into history, and such a bold reallocation rarely exists in isolation. Structural changes tend to arrive in waves, not singular splashes. If this decision represents the first phase of a broader recalibration, then the monarchy stands on the threshold of transformation. The children's guardianship may be only the visible beginning of a more extensive redefinition of influence. And if that is true, the institution's future will be shaped less by inherited script and more by deliberate design. And if today was only the beginning, the monarchy may never look the same again. 3 minutes ago, history shifted, not with a coronation, not with a scandal, but with a single line granting Catherine unprecedented authority over the monarchy's future heirs. Whether seen as protection or power, one truth is undeniable: the balance has changed. And as Britain watches closely, one question lingers in the air: has William just reshaped the monarchy forever? In the wake of that declaration, the outlines of a new royal era begin to sharpen. Catherine is no longer simply preparing to stand beside a king. She is actively designing the path of those who will inherit the crown. Her role has solidified into something far greater than ceremonial presence. She has become the architect of the next generation's public identity, the quiet strategist determining how and when the heirs meet the world. That authority is not decorative, it is formative, and it carries consequences that will echo long after today's headlines fade. William, in turn, has positioned himself in a dual role that few heirs have dared to embrace so openly: reformer and protector. He has challenged precedent without dismantling it, redirected influence without abandoning loyalty to the institution he is destined to lead. By elevating Catherine so decisively, he has refrained strength itself, not as rigid adherence to inherited structures, but as the courage to recalibrate them. In doing so, he risks criticism, but he also claims ownership of the monarchy's evolution. Inside palace walls, power has subtly reorganized around a nucleus of family unity. The message is unmistakable. Preparation of the future sovereign will not be outsourced to tradition alone. It will be filtered through parental conviction, maternal instinct, and strategic foresight. That recalibration narrows the circle of influence, concentrating responsibility in ways that feel both protective and revolutionary. For some, it is reassuring. For others, unsettling. But it is undeniably transformative. The children, though shielded from the immediate storm of commentary, stand at the center of this shift. Their futures will unfold under Catherine's deliberate governance, measured exposure, intentional development, carefully chosen moments of introduction to duty. Instead of being shaped primarily by ceremony, they may be shaped by balance. Instead of being molded by relentless visibility, they may be guided by paced preparation. If this model succeeds, it could redefine what royal readiness looks like in the 21st century. And the monarchy itself, long perceived as immovable, has taken a cautious step toward modernity, not through spectacle, not through dramatic public reform, but through a structural adjustment that places empathy alongside expectation. The emotional legacy of this move cannot be ignored. It speaks to a father unwilling to repeat history, to a mother determined to guard childhood within the glare of global scrutiny, to an institution wrestling with survival in an era that demands transparency and humanity. Yet even as this chapter closes, it does not feel like an ending. It feels like a threshold. The declaration has drawn a line between past and possibility. Whether that line becomes a bridge to renewal or a fault line of tension will depend on what follows. For now, the world watches as Catherine steps fully into her newly defined role. And William stands beside her, not retreating from tradition, but reshaping it with deliberate resolve. Because in the House of Windsor, the most powerful revolutions rarely come with crowns, they begin with a single decision, and today that decision changed everything. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.